How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly non-spoiler comic book review show. I just got done reading all my books. I'm going to tell you what I thought about each and every one of them coming up next. Stick around. All right, welcome back. So thank you very much for tuning in. I really do appreciate that. We're going to go over all the books I read this week. I'm going to put them up on this grading scale. I'm going to populate on the screen right now, just so you know how that particular book stacks up against the rest of the books that came out that week. So let's dive into the big two, as we always do. And the first book we're going to get into is Judgment Day. This is issue number 3, if I'm not mistaken, from Karen Gillan. And so basically this is our event that's going on right now inside of Marvel. You know, Marvel's got to put in an event every single summertime. So this is our big Eternals versus X-Men. We got some Avengers thrown in here. Issue number 3. It's actually planting its roots down in like every other X-Men book that's out right now, like Red and Immortal and everything else. And so this is our main title, issue number 3. So what's going on in here? I'll give you a little bit of a update about what the actual story is about in general. We have a few of the Eternals right now, and they are essentially identifying the mutants as excessive deviants, I think they call them right now. So basically word got out that the Resurrection Protocol is a thing. And so now they're multiplanetary, right? They're on Mars, they're on Earth, they're elsewhere. Now they've solved death in a way. And so they're becoming too excessive in the deviant scale, apparently. Apparently they were deviants all along, and nobody really seemed to care up until the point where they kind of had a resurrection protocol. So where are we in this one? We essentially have some Celestials that have been kind of awakened. And so basically they are judging every single person individually. And if the collective is deemed unworthy, there's going to be some kind of mass destruction that happens. So in all the different books right now, there's a big tie-in going on. And so we got to see from all the different perspectives how that judgment announcement was provided. And so this is basically your reaction issue. And so there's a lot of similarities between this and like Star Wars trench run kinds of stuff, you know, find the Celestials' weakness and kind of exploit it. Doesn't quite go according to plan. We do have a lot of different teams involved in here, so at least that's a cool thing. And we do get some interesting art in here too, so I do like that. You know, and all your fan favorites are going to be in here as well, so I'll flash a little page right here. Hopefully that focuses up for you. You know, you get your Wolverines, you get your Jean Greys, you get your Cyclops, you get your main people, but you also get some other folks as well. Some of the new established X-Men team action in one of the previous issues. And so, you know, it's an okay event. It has its moments, right? But I think like the unfortunate thing is just when we start getting a little bit of steam in some of the other issues, we get this big event. This one doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And then of course the tie-ins are going to start exploding everywhere. And so, I don't know. I think that if you're a long-term X-Men reader and you like the Eternals kind of stuff and you want to see all those play together, you might be interested in an event like this. For me, it was kind of a disruption, but I've read worse so far. So Judgment Day issue number 3, you know, we just got to get through the summer, guys. Just get through the summer and it'll all be over. Next Marvel book we read this week was Carnage issue number 5. We got some Ram V love in Carnage, which I really, really enjoy. The better symbiote book, in my opinion, compared to Venom, which is co-written by Al Ewing and Brian Hitch on the art. But we have Mana on the art here, and we have Ram V on the writing. This is an interesting book. The way I kind of see this book is Carnage was kind of witnessing what the King in Black was doing and what Eddie Brock has become as the Venom, right? And he's a little bit jealous, I think. And so he's actually going out and taking on some D-list, C-list villains, absorbing their powers, kind of upgrading himself to be as omnipresent as he possibly can. And he's dragging along this new serial killer who like the stage bodies and things like that. Just a really wicked dude, but he's also kind of like insecure and weak at the same time. And he's dragging this guy along as a potential host and kind of helping him through this mission. And then of course we have this detective that has a little bit of this like Cletus Cassidy symbiote on him as well. And so they're kind of in pursuit of Carnage and this other serial killer guy. It's a pretty interesting story. They're kind of hopping around and they've touched base with a few different villains already and kind of absorbed their essence. And now we're kind of world hopping right now to take out this mystical pack of hounds in a way. And so it's actually pretty fun. I do like this run a lot. It's not like, it doesn't totally grip me. I like what's happening in here. I would like to see it a little bit more explained and then kind of push forward a little bit. I want to know his ultimate goal a little bit better besides as just kind of upgrading himself and being potentially a threat for the Venom as we know it now. And so it's a pretty interesting run so far. So if you want an in continuity modern symbiote book, jump on Carnage. I'd jump off of Venom if I were you. If you want Venom, go read Lethal Protector because that's awesome. And then jump into this one because I think it's pretty cool. So check it out. Next Marvel book we read was ASM. This is issue number 8. What is it? Legacy 902. And yeah, this is a book. And so we have Zeb Wells on here. We got JR on the art. And I mean, I'm not going to keep repeating myself. JR is interesting. From panel to panel, it can be a little bit wonky. Be that as it may, where are we with the story right now? So basically, we have Peter. He just got with Norman Osborn. Osborn has a position for him in his company. Peter doesn't know if he can trust him. He's trying to figure all that out. And he has a little bit of an argument with him. They have a lot of history, obviously, right? Is it a trap? Is it not? Why is Mary Jane here? What's going on? And so there's a little bit of trust issues right there. Norman actually shares with him the fact that he's built a brand new suit for Spider-Man, and so he doesn't really know how to take that. There's like a glider component to it, so it's bringing back all these weird memories. And at the end of the last issue, we got attacked by the Vulture, who feels betrayed by Spider-Man. And so this issue right here is what happens in that initial battle, how that whole battle plays out. So it is high action, high flying, lots of close encounters, things like that. We do get a full appearance of the new suit that Norman put together and what its capabilities are. It's like a cross between Spider-Man and like the Green Goblin's glider and some of the technology that's built into that. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, so I mean, it was just like a weird issue. It was like basically Spider-Man and Vulture kind of duking it out, Spider-Man getting an upgrade and then saving the day or ending the battle. So that's basically where we are. And then we get a little recap at the end with him and Norman, and they kind of plan where they're going to go from there. So, you know, it was okay. It was an okay issue. I just don't like the arc in general so far. It's not really doing a whole lot for me. Here's a bunch of action scenes right here. You can actually see what the suit looks like. Again, it's right on the cover in case you guys didn't notice that. But, man, I don't know. ASM overall, I'm lacking the depth. It seems very surface level right now. I just wish it had more emotion. I feel like the art kind of pulls me out a little bit. The story's not that intriguing. I don't know. And I hear this from other people as well. It's not just me. There's some people who are diehard Spider-Man fans. They're going to love it. But I just feel like they need a creative team that really, really cares about the character and can really kind of pull out the emotion. And I just haven't seen that yet. But I'm relatively new to Spider-Man. So let me know what you guys are thinking about how Spider-Man's been handled over the last few years in general. I'd love to know down below in the comments. That's actually it for Marvel. We're going to hop over to DC next. We have Swamp Thing, Season 2, Issue 16, the ending, the climax of Ron V's run on Swamp Thing. And so I'll give you an overall review of the entire series in general, you know, with the caveat that I haven't read a whole lot of Swamp Thing in the past, so I'm kind of basing my whole opinion on the fact that I've just basically read this, and I haven't read Alan Moore's stuff. I'm sorry, I haven't done it yet. I have it in my stack. I'll get to it one day. But this is really my introduction to Swamp Thing in a way. And I think it actually helped because there's a little bit of an origin story in here as well. There's a new character, Levi, who's introduced. He's got a very complex, interesting family story as well with his father and his brother specifically. And he's got a relationship right now. He's kind of born into this avatar position. So he's learning all the ropes, and he's interacting with these different villains throughout his maturity as Swamp Thing. And so it's really, really fun. It's very high concept. It almost reads like poetry towards the end of Season 2 of Arc 2 here. In this issue specifically, it almost feels like you're reading poetry, and it's really interesting. It's a really interesting way of doing the writing and also then handling the storytelling. And also, I can't say enough about Spicer and Perkins' art in this book. It's absolutely gorgeous. The colors, the character styles, everything about this is just absolutely brilliant. Every time you turn the page, it's like a new, just amazing moment. It's really, really great. It has this murky feel to it without feeling too much like you're just drowning in mud. There's a lot of earth tones obviously in here, but there's a lot of cutting those earth tones with a lot of bright purples and bright yellows and things like that. And so it really, really does work. Of course, I got to give a big shout out to Aditya Bidikar on here as well, because there's a new avatar they introduce. And it's like a machine. It's like a mechanical avatar in a way. And the way that they talk is very gear clicky. There's this change in the font which actually you can read it in that little emphasis, like it's a rhythmic reading. It's very, very interesting. And I thought that added a lot to just the overall feel of the book itself. So very, very interesting book. Again, very high concept avatars from all these different forms of being, all kind of collide in here. There's some awesome cameos from like Hal Jordan in here. There was a Suicide Squad tie-in because of the movie, and it actually worked. And so I wasn't actually mad when I saw that, because the way that they actually embedded that into the story, it actually made sense, and it was fun to see that kind of play out. But yeah, I mean, if you're into Swamp Thing, you haven't checked this one out yet, I would highly recommend it. 16 issues. It was only supposed to be 10, and it got extended to 16 issues, and you really can't tell. They could have ended it at 10. They have like a natural ending in a way, but they also kind of planted the seed for it to kind of grow and become something more. And they dragged it out for another 6 issues, and I couldn't be happier with it. Check out Swamp Thing if you haven't done it yet. It's a really, really great run. All right, the next DC book we have this week was Tales of the Human Target. This is book 1, DC Comics, Tom King on here. Greg Smallwood is in here, but he's not the main artist on here. There's a couple different artists as well, depending on which story they are covering. So where does this fit with the Tom King run that we've been reading so far, Human Target? This is actually an in-between. There's a little bit of a hiatus right now with Human Target. It is coming back fairly soon. And this is like a little, I don't know if it's a one-shot or not, but it's a little extra issue they're putting in there just to kind of keep the hype alive, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. But it's basically a few different independent stories all kind of playing out, and the end result is it was the Human Target all along kind of a thing. And so we do get some of the characters we were introduced to in the previous Human Target run shown in here, and some of their previous interactions with Human Target. So I thought it was pretty fun. Does it have any weight on the current story that's about to pick back up? Not really, but I think it gives you a little bit more context about his personality, his past run-ins, things like that. So yeah, at least it kind of provides you a little bit more from that perspective. Again, the art style changes depending on the story being told, and so there's like that little lack of consistency, but the art style is still really good. So when you're thinking Greg is off and you're like, oh man, I don't really want to see another artist. No, the artist that they actually have in here filling in the gaps does a really good job. And so there was really no complaints from that perspective. And actually of the 2 or 3 or 4 stories that they show in here, they're all actually pretty good too. I didn't really feel like one story was way better than the other story. So they did a good job of doing that. Sometimes when they have these multiple stories inside of an issue, there's like 1 or 2 bad ones, and there's only like 1 good one. No, these are all fairly decent. And yeah, so I mean, you don't have to read this if you're reading Human Target and you're about to jump back in again when it comes back. It's just like a little extra filler issue to kind of get you back in that mood again. So yeah, check it out if you want to. Next DC book we read this week, we're keeping the Rom V train going, man. I'm loving this right here. We have Albuquerque on the art, Detective Comics. What issue is this? This is 1063. I'm loving the art style and the art direction that we're going with Detective Comics. It's like this real mystic, weird, almost anime-ish kind of a style, but it actually is working, and it's helping at least set the mood for the type of story they're trying to tell here, because it is heading in like this supernatural direction with this kind of secret society coming in, trying to get its talons into Gotham City without a lot of people knowing it. And there's obviously like a Lazarus Pit element to this as well. So we have Batman, we have our Bruce Wayne trying to figure out what is going on. He's interacted with some people that seem kind of superpowered in a way, maybe some Lazarus Pit, like I said. He's trying to uncover that mystery. And then the side story in here is essentially this secret organization kind of getting into Gotham. And there's a little bit of a history lesson about the ownership of Gotham and things like that. So, you know, you get a little bit of context as to why these people might be invading at this point in time and why they haven't maybe in the past. But, you know, based on these people's, based on how they're acting right now and their kind of power set, they're going to be something to watch out for. So it's going to be interesting to see what Batman does with this. It's going to be fun to see this kind of play out. And we get some Harvey Dent action in here too. Again, Batman really doesn't know what's happening in the city. He's trying to figure out who's kind of trying to take over right now. And a lot of the villains a lot of the usual suspects are not to blame as of yet. And so he's kind of trying to figure everything out still. One thing I really do like is the new characters in here and their art design. They seem like really menacing and things like that. So I'll give you a little preview of a couple of the new characters on here. This female character up here in the top. And then we have what presumably like a son or something like that, who's just really, really pissed off and apparently super powered. So it's going to be fun to see what kind of influence they have and what kind of strong arming they can do in Gotham to help take it over. So that's pretty cool. This backstory is from Cy Spurrier, and it's drawn by Danny. And so that is a kind of a follow-up to that 15-issue run of Joker with Gordon kind of getting back into his life and getting into retirement and whatnot. So there's a little bit of that going on in here, and there's kind of like this missing persons case, and he's following up with that, and he meets some unusual people over at the burned down or destroyed Arkham, and he's trying to, be useful however he can when he's in retirement. It's got that awesome Danny art. It's got that Cy Spurrier writing style. So it is pretty cool. Nice little backup story in here. But yeah, check out Detective Comics if you haven't. It's a great time to jump in. I really think that things are going to kick off very soon. All right, that's it for DC Comics. We're going to jump over to Boom Studios next, starting with Grimm issue number 4. I think this is the D cover, if I'm not mistaken. I get this one in the Jenny Frison usually when it comes out because it's pretty cool. And this is actually probably one of my favorite issues of Grimm so far. The overall story, I think, lacks this, I don't know, this like seriousness or maturity to it, or high stakes maybe. We have interesting set of characters. They just don't feel, there's like a lack of depth, I feel like. Interesting premise, interesting story. We essentially have a bunch of these Grim Reaper type characters who help usher people who have died. They all have their abilities to do that. They all have their own scythe. There's a hierarchy. There's some that are more powerful than others. We have our main character. She doesn't quite remember how she died, which makes her unique from the other Grimms around her. She's kind of like a chosen one or a special one, and realizes she has additional powers, and she's basically trying to get some answers, and people try to set her up, and they try to kill her, and she's kind of on the run with a couple of her friends right now. And so she's trying to meet up with some other powerful people who are kind of in limbo at the moment, and that's essentially what this whole story is about. It's an interesting premise. Again, I feel like it lacks a little bit of depth, a little bit of, complexity, maybe. But what we've gotten so far is pretty bright. It's vibrant. It's an interesting art style. It's colorful. It's got its moments where it tries to be funny, and sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Let me know what you guys are thinking about Grimm. I'm going to keep reading it. It hasn't thrown me off completely yet. It's just cute and charming enough to kind of keep me interested, but let me know what you guys are thinking about it overall. Did it meet your expectations when it first came out? Was it what you were expecting? Did it go down a whole different path? Let me know how you're feeling after 4 issues, especially down below. All right, we got a new number 1 that I was excited for. It's actually a volume 2 number 1. We have Wind, The Throne in the Sky, issue number 1. This is actually James Tynion IV. I did not actually read volume number 1. I kind of regretted it. I think it was about a half a dozen issues in before I even realized it was James Tynion's book. And it was kind of when he was just getting out there. Something's Killing Children was hitting it big. He was really getting his name out there. It kind of flew under the radar, pun intended. And so Wind is actually something I regret not picking up, but I actually don't know too many people who read it. I don't hear a lot of chatter about Wind in general. Everyone seems to talk about, his AAA books. And so I wanted to jump in here and see how new reader friendly it would be. I think from a new reader perspective, it's not great because it kind of picks up at a point where they're all on the run. There's already established teams of people. We have our group of good guys. We have our bad guys. We have a lot of history between the political structures. They're on the run from some kind of tyrant right now. And there's a lot of things that they kind of take for granted in here about this character's power set and what makes him different from other folks, I guess, and what his blood can do. And there's vampires and there's all sorts of different clans and stuff. It wasn't very new reader friendly. So if you're going into Wind number 1, Throne in the Sky, thinking, oh, this might be a good place to jump on because I missed the boat the first time, you're probably going to be lost, but it might be a book that you can just keep reading and eventually everything will just work out. And then as you read, you can pick up the volume 1, get caught up, and maybe everything will make sense. I don't know if I'm that patient or not. Let me know if you've read volume 1 and then read this book and everything's like, yeah, it's great, man. It's a great story. You should actually do that. I don't know if I should read volume 1. Let me know if I should. I don't know if I'm going to keep getting this though. So if I don't read volume 1, I don't see why I should keep reading it. But let me know in the comments if that's a mistake or not. And if you read volume 1 and read this one and thought it was magnificent, let me know also. Art is pretty cool in here. It's James Tynion's writing, but it's not super wordy and complex and bogs you down. It actually reads pretty well. It's almost like James Tynion writing Twig in a way. It's cute, it's charming, has its moments. The art style is really fun. And yeah, that is that. I'll give you a little hint about what the art style looks like in here. Again, it's pretty cute and bright when it needs to be. So something I'm interested in, but I don't know if I'm interested enough to like keep going without that context that I kind of want right now. But let me know what you guys are thinking about Wind down below. All right, we're going to jump over to Image Comics for the next couple of books. We have I Hate This Place from Kyle Starks. This is issue number 4. And again, this is a book that I read just because it's a fun, entertaining book. I do like the premise. We essentially have a deceased, like a grandmother or something like that, passes her house down to her grandchild. Her and her girlfriend show up. They understand that the house is haunted. They get some outside help, like a Ghostbuster. But like shit gets crazy really fast. There's these really weird, interesting rules to the property and to the house. There's like this weird coincidental like armored truck robber that gets wrapped up in this whole property and everything like that too. It's crazy monsters, awesome little battles and things like that. The art style is really fun. I'll give you a little hint of the art style here. There's like weird giant bugs and all sorts of crazy stuff happening in this book. This is actually just like a fun book. You know what I mean? Doesn't bog you down with a whole lot of storytelling. The characters are compelling. I think overall it's not going to be extremely memorable, but it's just really, really fun to read this book. It's kind of like one of those books that is a good palate cleanser between some heavy stuff. Not to say that there's not a lot of depth in here, but it's just a different feel. And so I Hate This Place, issue number 4. It's just like a fun book, so I'd recommend checking it out. All right, next Image book we got was Rogues Gallery, issue number 2. And this is actually written by Hannah Rose May and Justin Mason on the art style. And I'm telling you what, this book actually really, really surprised me. I liked issue number 1 a lot because it felt like any other conversation I would have at the comic book store. You sit down, you kind of criticize the on-screen adaptations of your favorite books. Oh, that actor or actress ruined that role. They don't understand the source material. What are they doing? How hard could it be? That kind of stuff. And it kind of shows how that conversation spirals out of control to the point where all these people kind of ganged up and they were going to go take out the star who they thought ruined the entire franchise. And we learned at the end of that last page on that first issue, things don't go according to plan. This issue kind of reminds me how they handled, the Radiant Red character in Radiant Black, how that character was brought in initially as a character that we were supposed to hate, right? We didn't understand the backstory. Then we got an issue where we understood her backstory and it kind of made sense. And all of a sudden she's not a villain either, right? She's just trying to do whatever she can do. This is the exact same storytelling in this one. The character that all these comic book people hated ended up being the most genuine character probably on the entire set of these movies and shows. And it goes through her whole struggle and how she ended up getting off of that franchise and everything like that. So it's actually a gigantic like misunderstanding kind of a character book, but I thought it was executed really, really, really well. So this book was really, really surprising. I do like that a lot. There's not a whole lot of action inside of this book. It's basically her, this actress's interactions with her colleagues, with her husband, with her friends, with her assistant and things like that. And yeah, so there's not a whole lot of action, but still it grips your attention. It keeps it. And it was great, man. I thought it was great. It was a nice little twist. I did not expect this. I expected the battle that we saw at the end of issue number 1. So now we have this awesome context from both sides going into the next issue. So I think it's going to be something to look forward to. So Rogues Gallery issue number 2. I loved issue number 1. I really like issue number 2, so I would recommend this one for sure. All right, next Image book is Public Domain issue number 3 from Chip Zdarsky. And again, this is a great exploration, kind of behind the scenes, peeling back the curtain a little bit about how ugly creator rights can get. In this issue here, we have a couple creators of this comic book series, and it got its film adaptation, and there's a lot of like struggle about the ownership and the rights behind that. Some of the creators' sons, one's addicted to gambling and things like that, and so he owes some people a lot of money, and so it's really important to him for his dad to get creative rights back and to own and to get all that money that he deserves, right? And so everybody has their own motivation for why this should be the case. So it's pretty fun to explore all those different angles. This seems like a pretty personal book about kind of like, not maybe like the worst case scenario, but this is basically what we're seeing with every creator-owned thing right now, and for the reason why the creator-owned genre is expanding, because so many people put out so many great characters over the past 60, 70, 80 years, and maybe we can have a discussion about fair compensation based on revenue streams and things like that in the modern era. But you know, this is a pretty interesting book. It's a peel back behind the curtain kind of a thing. I don't know how interested I am to keep reading it, honestly. It's fun and it's interesting and it's, you know, it's something to read, but like it's not super gripping and super engaging. You know, there's no like superheroes doing super crazy stuff. It's like families arguing and corporations arguing with families, family members and things like that, and like broken relationships between brothers and parents and stuff. So it's like, okay. It's a little bit too real, I guess, maybe, but it's fun to kind of see behind the curtain a little bit. Art style is pretty basic, I would say, but it works. It's extremely clean, very, very clean lines, very crisp, bright colors and things like that. So, you know, it's at least a nice looking book. There's not a lot of action or anything like that. It's just like arguments and stuff. So let me know what you guys are thinking about Public Domain. Is this like a long-term read? Do we know how long this is going to go? Let me know down below. All right, the next few books are from Dark Horse. We have Minor Threats, issue number 1. I saw it was from Patton Oswalt, and I had to jump on this book because I'm a big Patton Oswalt fan. I do like his comedy and whatnot, so I wanted to go into here. I don't remember if this is like a continuation or a previous known group of villains or universe or anything like that. I'm jumping in completely blind into this one, and it was really, really fun. It read like a great comic book, I thought. It didn't really have any dialogue or anything like that, which really bogged it down. We're basically introduced to this woman who runs a bar. There's a lot of these like D-E-list villains that are all in here, and she herself was a retired villain, and she has some family issues. Her daughter saw her kind of get arrested or something like that. And so there's some custody issues with her husband, her ex-husband, and her daughter. She's trying to grow up and be just a better person. And so she's working in this bar right now. It's the only job she can get. We meet her mom, and her mom's like, "No, get back in the game, girl. You got this. You can do all this stuff." And so it's fun to kind of hear her be the mature one in that relationship. It is pretty funny. The villains around her are kind of making fun of her past, like who gets arrested? How good of a villain could you have been? Things like that. There's a murder mystery in here, and some of the A tier or S tier superheroes are really investigating the area and kind of putting everything on lockdown around her. And you know, you have enough bad days, and sometimes you just flip back to the other side, and that's kind of what we have in this issue. We get to see her slowly evolve, see her get kicked in the face too many times, and then eventually she goes, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to go back to my old ways, and I'm going to get this group together, and we're going to solve this problem before the supers can actually solve it. So it was a pretty fun exploration, really interesting way to show you the current state, show you this character's back history, and show you where the story is going to go. So I thought he did a really good job of putting all that together, and the art was really interesting too, I thought. I'll try to show you a cool page. Gives you an idea of what you're looking at art style wise. Again, it kind of changes depending on which page you're on. So you get a little bit of taste of that kind of an art style. And then occasionally you get like these Scott Pilgrim black and white moments in here where she's kind of interacting or kind of playing out a scene inside of her head, and it didn't actually happen. It's kind of like a dream sequence. So I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, Minor Threats number 1, a book that I really didn't have too many expectations for. It looked fun. It had interesting art. Patton Oswalt wrote it. I didn't really know what to expect, but it's actually way better than I thought it was going to be, and I'll be checking out issue number 2 for sure. All right, next Dark Horse book was Star Wars Hyperspace Stories, issue number 1, and I was excited for this one because Dark Horse is going to be back in the Star Wars game, starting with this one. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we're going to get a Luke and Leia story in the next issue, but I could be wrong about that one. But what are we doing here? Basically, this is right around the Clone Wars, and this is essentially just a story with Obi-Wan and Anakin on a rescue mission right now. Of course, we got Padme getting into trouble. We have some royalty Wookiees and some kind of mysterious artifact that they're transporting right now. And of course, General Grievous gets in the way and things like that, of course. And so, yeah, we have this basically this big battle between all of them, and things kind of go south here and there. But, you know, at the end of the day, they kind of save the day as best they can. Art style, I didn't really enjoy the art, to be honest with you. I'll give you a little hint about what the art style looks like in here. The coloring was just like, it's just ultra bright. The facial expressions, just not a whole lot of detail, just kind of like basic art style. So I didn't really like the art too much. I'm wondering if it's going to continue like that. I'll probably get used to it. I just didn't expect that kind of art, right? And so, yeah, was it like an amazing, you know, Star Wars book? No, it wasn't, but it had all the right characters to be like nostalgic at least and be interesting. And yeah, we'll keep going with it because I think the story changes a little bit from issue to issue. We'll see what issue number 2 brings. Last book we read this week was Shaolin Cowboy, Cruel to Be Kin, issue number 4 from Jeff Darrow and Dave Stewart on the art. I've said it before on every single issue of this book. The art style is absolutely crazy. The coloring, it seems like a complete nightmare to have to color this book, but man, it's one of the most gorgeous books I've ever read, and it is very, very interesting, extremely detailed, especially in this issue. It must have took forever to draw and color this issue from a variety of different reasons. Essentially, we have a kind of like a reunion of our lizard character that we've grown up with in the last few issues. When it was hatched, there's a lot of drama with the father trying to kill it. We met our Shaolin Cowboy. They've progressed through all these different villains. They've developed this relationship, and some time has passed since then. And now this is kind of like the reunion of those characters. So it's a little bit heartfelt. It's pretty fun. There's a lot of sincerity and emotion in their reunion, which I thought was pretty fun. And yeah, it was really nice. I did like it a lot. The issue ultimately ends in some kind of a tragedy. I'll let you read it to figure it out, but it gets me really excited to know what could possibly happen in the next few issues. There's going to be some hell to pay for sure. And I'm really excited to see that, because everything I've seen so far about this book has been completely over the top. Just like the most random, crazy things ever. Some of the villains in here that they fight, it's absolutely nuts. I mean, it's a giant flying catfish with chainsaws on his whiskers. I mean, come on. That's what we're talking about here. That's the level of insanity that we are referring to in this book. It is really, really fun. And the city landscapes in here, you can spend all day looking at all the little details. It's almost like a Where's Waldo kind of a thing. If you spent your childhood staring at those pictures, seeing all the funny things happening, you're going to love a book like this, because it's exactly like that with an adult twist to it. But yeah, like I said, the art's insane in this book. It ends in tragedy in here. I'm excited to see how that translates into the future issues. I would not want to be the guys that caused this trouble at the end of this issue for sure. We have at least a few more issues to go. I think issue number 7 comes out around November. And so we have a few more issues to go before the end of the year at least. Check out Shaolin Cowboy, Cruel to Be Kin. You don't need to know anything about the previous runs of this book. You can jump right in. It's very new reader friendly. It's one of the best books out there. Check it out. All right, so that's everything I read this week, and that's my thoughts on them. I appreciate you watching the video. Go down below in the comments and let me know what your favorite books of the week were. And if you recommend anything for me to read, I'll definitely check it out. But as always, like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted of future videos. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you down below in the comments.